the solution of the religion of Islam? We have to know what the solution is and what our responsibilities are. How is it that we can play a positive role in calming down this nation? What is the solution of the religion of Islam when it comes to such issues? How do we stop a nation from becoming radicalized, from being influenced from such hateful rhetoric? And this is what's important. Because the problem is not Donald Trump. He can say whatever he wants. The problem is the consequences of such hateful rhetoric. This is our society in which we live in. We cherish our homeland here. Here is the future of our children. We need to know what we need to do. So what is the solution of the religion of Islam? There are external factors and there are internal factors that the religion of Islam emphasizes in order to protect a nation from falling into such a trap, from becoming hateful, from becoming racist, and from becoming rejecting of other minorities, of other groups. So let's start with the first internal factors. The first internal factor, brothers and sisters, something that the Holy Quran constantly stresses and emphasizes is what? Taqwa. To be pious. Because change starts in your heart. If I don't have piety in my heart, I can't change my society. I can't stop this hateful rhetoric. If I don't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm not God conscious. That's why you see the Holy Quran constantly emphasizing this. وَتَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الزَّادِ التَّقْوَى. The best provision for you is to have piety, to be pious. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهِ. O people, O you who believe, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be pious. وَلْتَنظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدْ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ. The same verse mentions piety twice. Because when you're truly mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you, watching your every move, everything you say, even how you think. That creates an internal barrier between you and between hatred, between you and racism, between you and arrogance and extremism. It all starts with taqwa. And piety doesn't mean that you have to have a beard and you go to the mosque and you pray in front of others. No, that's just one part of it. We've seen many people throughout history who used to pray. But what kind of prayer? A prayer which had no piety, a prayer which had no taqwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is monitoring our actions. Every minute of our actions is being monitored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, when you think about how many cameras are monitoring you from day to night, you'll change. You'll act very differently. First of all, Allah is watching you. Secondly, the angels of God, especially the two angels who are recording your actions. Number three, the very ground that you walk on is monitoring you. يَوْمَئِذٍ تُحَدِّثُ أَخْبَارَهَا بأن ربك أوحى لها. Allah on the day of judgment will reveal to the earth to speak. What did I do on this land? What did I do on this earth? The prophets and the imams, they're monitoring our actions. Your own body parts are monitoring you. وَقَالُوا لِجُلُودِهِمْ لِمَ شَهِدْتُمْ عَلَيْنَا. On the day of judgment you will tell your skin, your body parts, why did you witness against me? Why did you expose me? What will it say? قَالُوا أَنْطَقَنَا اللَّهُ الَّذِي أَنْطَقَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who caused us to speak. If a person truly has taqwa, if a nation, if a society are pious, then you don't see such consequences. Even if someone comes with hateful rhetoric, you don't see millions of people changing within months, within weeks. This is the importance of piety. This is the importance of taqwa. They say once a father went with his son to a farmland to steal some fruits from that farmland. He told his son, my son, stand at the gate. make sure no one is watching us. If you see someone watching us, I want you to let me know. Immediately point that out to me. So as soon as his father goes and he's about to pick those fruits and steal them, his son calls on him. His father comes back, he's scared. Is there someone here? He told him, my dear son, what happened? He's like, well, someone's watching us. He came to the gates, he looked to his right, he looked to his left. No one was watching. He told him, my dear son, there's no one watching. So why did you call me and give me a false alarm? He told him, Baba, didn't you tell me that if someone's watching us, I should tell you? He's like, yeah, so who's watching us? He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us. I just wanted to remind you of that. He had a good mother who raised him. You think if you raise your children like that, brothers and sisters, you'll have issues. If a person really grows up to be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to truly have piety, would you have such issues? This is one internal solution that the Holy Quran gives us. That if you want Allah to change your status, you start changing yourself. This is number one. Number two is arrogance. Because a lot of these people who are supporting such hateful rhetoric, they're driven by arrogance. Because Trump and others, what do they tell them? Essentially, they're telling them, whether directly or indirectly, that we're better than all other nations. We're the best nation on earth. We're the best people. We're the most advanced people. We're this, we're this. And this actually creates a lot of arrogance. When you become arrogant, then yes, you'll hate others. You'll denounce others. You'll show your racism. You'll show your extremism. The Holy Quran teaches us to be humble. Why do you think the Holy Quran keeps telling us about the story of Prophet Adam alayhi salam and Iblis, the devil? Why does God keep telling us in so many of the chapters of the Quran? Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam explains it to us. The Imam alayhi salam explains to us that the first sin that was ever committed was what? An act of arrogance. Because Iblis said, I will not prostrate to Adam. I'm better than him. You created me from fire and you created him from clay. And fire is surely better than clay. An act of arrogance. If we can teach humbleness to our families, to our societies, and spread that humbleness, this is a great way to stop this hatred, to stop racism, to truly feel humble. To truly feel that you're just a humble servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once there was a gathering of two scholars in Najaf centuries ago. One of them was a very well-known scholar. He was a marja'. And there was another one who was also a scholar, a marja', but not as famous as the first one. They got into an argument, an intellectual argument. He was trying to prove his point. The other one was trying to prove his point. Until one of the maraja', he remained silent. And it seemed that he accepted the argument of the other marja'. Now, in that moment, people thought that the other marja', he became victorious. As that other marja' was about to leave, you know what the first one did? He got up to him, he went to him, and as he was farewelling him, he kissed his hands. Do you know what that means? And he had a higher social status, yet he kissed his hands. Now his followers were really disturbed. Afterwards they came to him and they told him, what's going on? Why did you do that? Why did you kiss his hands? This is wrong. This is unacceptable. You know what he said? He said, when I was arguing with him and I realized that I had the proper argument, I became arrogant. I wanted to stop the arrogance, so I remained silent. Let him beat me in the conversation, so what? But then I felt myself as struggling to prove myself, to prove my point, to be the victorious one. In order to tramp myself and restrain myself, I did the unthinkable. I went and I kissed his hand. So I teach myself a good lesson. Never act arrogantly. Never think you're better than others and you can win any argument. Arrogance breeds such type of hatred. Selfishness breeds such type of hatred. Unfortunately, many of our fellow citizens, yes, we have the spirit of philanthropy, the spirit of generosity and giving, but many of us are selfish because we only care about us, ourselves, our problems. Who cares about what's happening in the world? Do you know that every year in the United States, $160 billion worth of fresh food is wasted? $160 billion. For those who have charitable organizations, you know what that means. You know that no human being will starve on earth if that 160 billion was spent on them. On the poor, to eradicate poverty, to eradicate starvation and malnourishment. But the problem is we don't care. We're wasting all these resources. This goes back to selfishness because we really don't care. It's not important for us. And the third one is ignorance. Ignorance also breeds hatred. Interestingly, even, in the media they were quoting this, that the diploma was the Republican fault line. Those, a good indicator of those who would support such hateful rhetoric, or they would support Trump, is their level of education. Most of his supporters, they have less education, a high school diploma or less. Not all of them, but many of them. Because ignorance really breeds hatred. The more you're educated, the more you realize what's going on in the world. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instruct us in the Holy Quran to see the diversity? Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us that I've created you as nations and tribes? So you get to know one another. So you share experiences from one another. This is the beauty of the religion of Islam and the diversity that we see in the religion of Islam. So these are several internal factors. Now let's get to the external factors. One of the most important external factors, brothers and sisters, is for us as a community to speak up. We have to do something about this. Al-Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam teaches us that when you see something wrong in your society, don't feel complacent. Don't feel powerless. No. Even if your numbers are a few, you can make a difference. No, America is not, going down the drain because of someone who's irresponsible like Donald Trump. No. America is still a great nation. But we have to play a role in keeping this nation a great nation. You can make a difference. If you think Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam with 72 companions, he made a difference. On the other side, you had how many? 30,000. We're a lot more than 72. We're a lot more than 72. Just look at the numbers that we have in our community. We can make a difference. But we have to speak up. We have to have an active role in the media, in our communities, in our societies. And there are three groups, brothers and sisters, that we need to expose. Number one is ISIS. Because believe it or not, ISIS is now representing us in the eyes of millions of people. It could be your neighbor, believe me. Go to your neighbor, speak to your American neighbor, and you realize that, maybe ISIS does represent those people. Maybe if they're given power, they'll do the same. Millions of Americans are actually thinking that. What have you done to distance yourself from ISIS? What have you done? I want to ask all of you here tonight, brothers and sisters. Ask yourself, have I personally done anything to denounce extremism? Because it's extremists like ISIS who actually, give people like Donald Trump the rhetoric to create hatred. That's what's dangerous. What have I done as an individual, as a citizen, to say that ISIS does not represent me, that I condemn this group? What have we done? We have to expose them. This is one group. The second group that we have to expose, brothers and sisters, are those who support ISIS. The Wahhabi ideology. Governments like Saudi Arabia who has been backing such ideology for decades. For 2 centuries, they've been backing this Wahhabi ideology. This breeds violence. This breeds hatred. We have to expose them. And these days we're seeing a wave, in the media of them being exposed. You know, the recent legislation passed, JASTA for example. And we see a lot of articles now in the New York Times and elsewhere. But this is the third group that we also need to expose, brothers and sisters. And this is very sensitive, but we have to discuss this. You know, right now, for example, in the New York Times, we're seeing many articles that are speaking about Saudi Arabia and their role in terrorism, in supporting these terrorists. That's great, that's wonderful, and we should thank them for exposing that. But I would like to ask the New York Times and others, where were you the past 15 years when Saudi Arabia was supporting these terrorists, was supporting the extremist Wahhabi ideology? Where were you? How come you were silent? All these politicians, these congressmen, suddenly now, they decide that Saudi Arabia should be held responsible. What happened the past 15 years? This should be a wake-up call for America, brothers and sisters. And we have to speak about this so this doesn't keep happening again. Politicians have to act responsibly. Yes, it's great right now that you begin to realize where the root of extremism is in the world and who's feeding this extremist Wahhabi in the Muslim, this extremist ideology in the Muslim world. But what happened the last 15 years? How come you turned a blind eye? They have to be answerable to Americans. They need to explain their position the past several decades. So this doesn't happen again in the future. So we have to be very vocal, brothers and sisters. We have to speak up and defend our rights. We have to reject racism in all of its forms. It starts from us. You know, the problem is when you talk about racism with our fellow Americans, racism sometimes is destroying our own communities, our own societies. But listen to this hadith from the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih. Inspect your heart right now. See, do you have any traces of racism, of prejudice? In this hadith, the Prophet, peace be upon him, says, "Man kana fi qalbihi habbatu khardalin min asabiyya." If there is in your heart the size of a seed of racism, of prejudice, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will resurrect you with a'rab al-jahiliyyah, with the pagans of Jahiliyyah. If you have the size of a seed of racism in your heart. A true believer is one who does not have racism. We need to lift the spirit of the religion of Islam and share it with our society, brothers and sisters. We Muslims should be at the forefront in combating racism, in combating hatred, prejudice, sexism. We should be at the forefront. But are we really doing our job? What are we doing in our societies? Let's learn from Al-Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam. Let's take the spirit of Al-Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam. Let's say to our nation that such hateful rhetoric will not destroy us. With the spirit of Abi Abdullah Al-Hussein, we'll stop this hatred. We'll stop this racism. Let's show the love of Al-Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam. Through our actions, let's invite to the path of Al-Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam. When others look at our actions, do really reflect the teachings of our imams, of our leaders. You know, every company has a catalog. You look at the catalog, it's so nice and fancy. It really encourages you to buy the product. We, the followers of Ahlul Bayt, we are catalogs to the imams. Because the people did not see the imams. What do they see? They see me, they see you, they see us as a community. We are catalogs to the imams of Ahlul Bayt. We reflect their teachings. Have we been good catalogs, brothers and sisters? Through our actions, through our words, through our history, through our contributions, have we demonstrated to this society what Al-Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam can offer? Ask yourself tonight, brothers and sisters, what can I do to change myself, first of all, and to change my society, and to give a good image of my faith a real, genuine image of my faith. This is what the Imams expect of us. كونوا دعاة لنا بغير ألسنتكم كونوا زينا علينا. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says, without your tongues, you don't need to even always speak, through your actions. And especially the respected sisters. Allah is my witness, when you're observing the hijab, and you offer a good deed in your society, a charitable act, an act of humanity, through your knowledge you dispel these misconceptions. This has such a great value in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's take the flag of Al-Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, because the banner of Al-Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam invites everyone. Everyone is welcome to the path of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. You talk about racism, look what happened in Karbala. One of the companions of Al-Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, by the name of John, the son of Huway, or Huway. This man was a slave owned by Abu Dhar. He was a black slave. He was with the Imam alayhi salam. He followed the Imam. He was in love with Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. He could not leave the Imam for a single minute. When the Imam left Medina, he came with him. When he went to Mecca, he followed him. He followed him all the way to Karbala. The Imam alayhi salam told him, "Oh John, you can leave. You joined us, you were with us, the Ahlul Bayt, so you can achieve security, stability, to achieve peace. But tomorrow is a very dangerous day. They shall attack us and they shall kill us. Leave, oh John." You know what he does? He falls at the feet of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. He tells him, "Sayyidi, my master, in good times I was with you. I would eat from your food. And now in difficult times you want me to betray you? I won't betray you, O Aba Abdullah." On the day of Ashura, John comes to Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. See the unifying message of the Imam. He welcomed everyone. And these are wonderful lessons, brothers and sisters, for us to combat racism. Especially in that society where people like John had absolutely no value. He came to the Imam alayhi salam to farewell the Imam. The Imam alayhi salam initially refused him permission to go out to the battlefield. But then the Imam alayhi salam, he gave him the permission. He told him, "Oh John, go and fight these enemies. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala illuminate your face on the day of judgment." John goes out, he fights so valiantly. The love of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is driving him. When the enemies, they surround him from every direction, he falls to the ground. He calls on Imam al-Hussein, "Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah." He calls on the Imam. The Imam alayhi salam rushes to him. The Imam alayhi salam sees him on the ground. Historians tell us the Imam did something unique with this black man that he only did with his son Ali al-Akbar. Historians say the Imam alayhi salam came down to the ground. He placed his cheek on the cheek of John. And he told him, "Oh John, may Allah forgive you. May Allah illuminate your face on the day of judgment." He begins to cry, "Man mithli wa ibn Rasulillah wadi'un khaddahu ala khaddi." He tells him, "Oh Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, who's like me? And the son, the grandson of Rasulullah, places his cheek on my cheek." But this is the message of Imam al-Hussein. He invited everyone. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, one of the companions of the Imam alayhi salam. He was a Uthmani, one of the supporters of Uthman. He was anti-Ahlul Bayt. On the way to Karbala, the Imam alayhi salam met him, and he heard the message of the Imam, and he joined Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. This is one of the companions of the Imam. It was open to everyone. Another of the companions of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was Wahab al-Kalbi. Wahab was originally a Christian. When he heard the message of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he embraced the message of Imam al-Hussein. On the day of Ashura, the mother of Wahab told him, "My dear son Wahab, what are you waiting for? Don't you want to illuminate my face before Fatima az-Zahra on the day of judgment? I shall not be satisfied with you unless you go and fight alongside Al-Imam al-Hussein and be killed in his way. But you know, Wahab, he had recently gotten married. Maybe just 2 months before that, he was a newlywed man. His wife was very disturbed. She told him, "Oh Wahab, I beg you, don't leave me. We just got married. Let's share our lives together. Let's enjoy our life together. I can't see you go and getting killed in front of you." She keeps begging him not to go. But his mother keeps pushing him. She tells him, "Oh Wahab, I shall not be satisfied unless you go and you die with the companions of Al-Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam." Wahab, he farewells them. He goes and he defends the Imam alayhi salam. When he was in the battlefield, in his final moments, he heard a voice coming from behind him. "Ya Wahab, qatil duna at-tayyibin." He heard someone, a familiar voice telling him, "Oh Wahab, yes, continue fighting, continue fight. Defend the righteous people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." He turns his face. He sees his wife coming. He's puzzled, he's confused. He tells her, "My dear wife, just moments ago, you were trying to stop me from defending Hussein. What happened now? I see you encouraging me." She tells him, "Oh Wahab, do not blame me. I saw a scene that broke my heart. I saw Abu Abdullah al-Hussein standing by the tents, feeling so lonely. إن واعية الحسين كسرت قلبي." He tells her, what was Hussein saying? What is it that he said that changed your position? "I saw this lonely man. He said, ألا هل من ناصر ينصرني? ألا هل من ذاب يذب عنا?" Is there anyone to support us? Is there anyone to support these women and children? Oh Wahab, go and fight and die in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Everyone together, let's pay our salutations to Al-Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and companions. Assalamu ala al-Hussein wa ala Ali ibn al-Hussein wa ala awlad al-Hussein wa ala ashab al-Hussein wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Respected